Okay.
Our trout fishing and adventure trip starts by getting our gas tank filled next to home. From there, we'll have about 400 miles to travel to go to southeast Oregon to the Steens Mountain area. So we'll head on out, and pretty soon we'll see the Cascade Mountains, which we go over, and then to the Steens Mountains. Our grandkids and daughter are along. Marge stops and gets a few more provisions for the trip at French Glen. French Glen still has an old hotel that was built for cattle buyers, although the original one is gone and this one was built later. And it is a state park, and you can still rent a room there and even have a sit down meal in there on a big round table where you pass bowls of food. But it's a rather steep price, and we'd just rather cook our own. So we just bypass the old hotel and take the Steens Mountain Loop right straight up the Steens Mountains for about 17 miles. It's sagebrush and juniper country for sure now as we steadily move up the Steens Mountains. A cloud of dust billows skyward behind us as we move up the 17 miles to Fish Lake, where we'll be camping tonight. A few mule deer curiously stand by and watch as we move up. Pretty soon they get nervous and start switching their tail in that warning fashion, and then they'll sneak at first and then trot and bound off over the hill. It's good to see some mule deer here. The numbers have been quite low in recent years and still are. We move right up the Steens Mountains and see a hawk setting high in a dead juniper tree as we steadily move along. He's probably waiting for a rodent to make that fatal mistake. The sun is setting low in the sky as we see the sign and head right into the little campground at Fish Lake where we'll camp for a day or two. Fish Lake shows up right ahead of us, and that's a good place to go fishing for planet rainbow, and there are some brook trout which have spawned in there. We park right in some alders.
The moon is round and full and lights the area up as if it were daylight. The image of the moon dances in the gentle ripple of Fish Lake. As the night goes on, a few bats are flying around, and in the far distance we can hear some coyotes howling. The night was all too short, and the sun is by now creeping up over the mountain, warming us. It got really cold there. There was frost over everything. It's almost a full 30 degrees cooler up here at nearly 10,000 feet than it is down in the valley floor below. Annette's little dog is out and ready to start barking as we gather up our fishing gear, pack us a little lunch, get in the vehicle, and we're headed to catch those cutthroat trout if we can. We'll start the vehicle up and go up a few miles above Fish Lake to the very summit of the Steens Mountains, where we'll make our hike from the summit. We stop for a moment to watch a hawk riding a thermo over one of the canyons at the summit of the Steens Mountains. There's a chill in the early morning breeze as we look down from the summit of the Steens Mountains. We can see fields and the valley below and Borax Lake area. We will be hiking down the trail through a wilderness area here on the summit of the Steens Mountains. A few snowbanks still linger on the hillsides above us here in the top of Big Indian Canyon. We sign in at the little register place for the wilderness area. As we walk to the edge of the cliff, the early morning sunlight is already shining on Whitehorse Lake down below us. We start down the cliffs on our journey down to the lake to see if we can catch one of the elusive Lahaka cutthroat in the waters down below us. Our hike takes us past thistles, the Steens Mountain thistle here. I never thought that I would enjoy a thistle, but these are the exception. These are unique only to the Steens Mountains, and they have blossoms going all the way down the stem through fields of flowers, with Whitehorse Lake, our destination, straight down below us as we wind our way down switchbacks on sort of a dim trail. There are more little seep springs than you can count here, and each of them has a field of flowers growing along them. These seep springs are caused by the melting glaciers all around us here in Whitehorse Canyon. If only we had wings, we could soar down to the lake below us. But a good pair of boots seems to work fine. We're down at the lake and ready to try out our fishing gear here and see what happens with these very, very special trout. Jacob is testing the water with a little rooster tail spinner, and it looks like he has the honor of reeling in the first one of these Lahaka cutthroat trout out of the waters of Whitehorse Lake, the ice-cold waters with the melting glaciers right above. He proudly holds up his catch in front of Whitehorse Lake. And Annette has the honor of catching the second one of these very special trout.
Oh, look, I got a bigger wormfish than you.
Yeah, a nice cutthroat again. The flowers at this altitude are growing tiny dwarf. Right in this gravel bar here is a tiny dwarf monkey flower.
Next to it, with its petals spread wide, is a tiny dwarf.
Jacob's got another one on.
They were all over, and it looks like Jacob has another fish on by now.
Hold him up and let's see him, Jacob. Okay.
Hey, worm boy, you're in my...
We figured out that Jacob's a worm fisherman, but at least he digs his own worms. That's as good as a fly fisherman that ties his own flies. Annette has another one on, fighting for its life out in the ice-cold waters of Whitehorse Lake.
What?
Oh, look at that one.
Wow!
He's a big one.
Hold him up. Hold him up higher. Yeah. Turn him a little. The cutthroat trout, there's where he gets his name, those under his gills there. Wow, what a pretty colored one. Nice, great big, pretty silvery spots. Wow, that's a nice one too.
Yeah.
Look how pretty he is. He's a little different color. Hold him up a little higher.
What time is it? Oh, it's exactly 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, huh?
Yep. Here's my fifth and final fish. So it took me an hour and 15 minutes. Oh, oh man, he got off.
Ha! Ha! What now, Mom?
Okay, well,
You got him, haven't you?
I think so. Oh, maybe got off. I'm not sure.
He's there.
No, I don't think so. No.
Let me take a look at that hook. Jacob's trying his luck at fly fishing against a background of flowers. The death camas makes its presence known right here on the edge of the lake.
Looks like Annette has her 5th and final fish on now. So she'll have to just take pictures and watch Jacob and I as we try to catch ours. These fish fight like tigers, and once in a while one will get away from us. And when you catch one, others follow it to shore.
Oh, damn! Oh,
He's gone.
he's gone. Well,
Looks like I have one on now, and I'll bring it in and throw out again and try to catch my limit too. Looks like that fish comes real close to getting away after I already have him up on the bank there.
there, I got it.
That's your 5
That's
now.
my 5th.
Whitehorse Lake has given up a limit of 5 cutthroat.
Another one came and grabbed it off. Couldn't put a little collar on that fly, Jacob. Oh, I got one. Yeah, what now? Oh!
Oh, Flyboy's got a fish!
The fly fishing worked real well too. We had a special fly that the fish just fought over, but unfortunately Jacob lost it, so we had to do some substitutes which didn't work quite as well, but it looks like they're working now.
Well, what do you know? It's not a wormfish. So how many fish do you have so far, Jacob? 3? 2 wormfish and 1 flyfish? I've got 5 wormfish.
So we're about even.
By now a little high mountain breeze is starting to blow around the lake here, and there's a little bit of wave action around the side, but it doesn't seem to be hurting any. The fish are still biting. After losing our real good flies, we don't seem to be doing so good on fly poles, so Jacob's taken to this spinning pole again to try his luck at finishing his limit. A blanket of wildflowers surrounds the lake, where melting snowbanks have left them plenty of moisture to grow. There's plenty of poison hemlock growing around the shore of the lake. It's the root on this plant that's poisonous, and Socrates committed suicide with it. I guess Socrates would be pretty happy around this lake. We're surrounded by cliffs here, and then at the bottom end of the lake it just drops straight off into Whitehorse Canyon. Annette already has her limit of fish, so she takes the opportunity just to sit down in the beauty of a patch of wildflowers along the shore of the lake here, as they're gently waving in the breeze. The flowers of several different colors form a fragrant blanket around the shores of this very special lake. Since Annette and I both have our limit catch of cutthroat trout, we're just kind of taking advantage of some of the beauty of the wildflowers all around the lake while we wait for Jacob to catch his last fish. One of the Steens Mountains thistles is growing right along the shore of the lake, and several blossoms still on it. Down at the lower elevation, these flowers have all been gone for months, but up here it's early spring, I guess, at about 9,000 feet. The buckwheat is in bloom. Several different varieties of buckwheat grow on the gravel beds here where the glaciers once set just a few weeks before. And every little flower has its own little nook and cranny to grow in here.
Another one of the camas family here.
Shit.
Sounds like Jacob needs his mouth washed out with soap here as he's trying to catch his last fish and thought he had it for a while.
Got him.
Got him that time, huh?
Is that a cutthroat?
Yeah. They vary a little bit. See the big speckles on him?
We all caught the same amount of fish.
What?
So everybody caught the same amount of fish.
Yeah, but you were the first to catch it.
That's right. Don't you forget it.
By now, we all have our limit of fish. We'll pack 'em in a pack, and I'm sure Jacob will be more than glad to pack 'em all out for us since he's the youngest. Annette and I will walk around and get some pictures of the wildflowers. The Indian paintbrush are in bloom here, just as pretty as they can be, all over the area where the little seep springs come down from the melting glaciers above. The lupins just now getting around to bloom along the trail's edge. As we head up the trail, breathing kind of hard at this high elevation, but 1 foot ahead of the other, and we'll soon be to the rim of Whitehorse Canyon here.
This seep spring is just a brilliant mass of colors here with all the wildflowers in blossom. A poison hemlock here growing along trail's edge. The one Socrates used to commit suicide.
Jacob seems to be standing up well over his load of fish. With 15 fish, that weighs quite a little bit, but boy, are we going to have a feast when we get out of here. Makes you almost hate to leave here, after going through regular fields of wildflowers of all different kinds here as we steadily climb up through the rocks and out of the canyon. You can hear the water from the melting glaciers beneath our feet here as we go through more and more fields of wild flowers on our way up to the canyon rim above. Even at this elevation, we can hear the bees frantically darting to and from, trying to pollinize these wild flowers in their very short growing season.
Getting a little warmer up here, huh?
I don't know whether it's the warm sun or the climb out of here that's making it that warm, but she's shedding some of her coats off, and Jacob will be more than happy to carry him the rest of the way out of the canyon here. On the way up nearly out of the canyon, we met a little poodle dog. He's taken his master for a hike down there and stopped only long enough to mark his territory on one of the rocks, and then down the canyon he went. The buck, another Steens mountain thistle, gently rocks in the breeze as it reaches its blossoms out to be pollinized by the first bee that comes by. We're making our way up out of here, one step at a time, and we're getting quite a ways up here. The bees are busy in this thistle right as we go by them. And the summit's within easy reach here. It looks like Jacob's almost there, carrying his pack with fish and gear in it. And there are wildflowers all the way to the top. Some of these are growing quite small. They're quite dwarfed due to the short growing season, the poor soil, and the extreme altitude and extreme temperatures up here. We can look back and see Whitehorse Lake down below, and out across the canyon we see the Albert Lake.
And this one lady put, "I'm liking the lichen."
Here, what
And that's Whitehorse Lake. This is the comments.
does it say, dog?
John Ross and dog Festus.
Oh,
And he didn't put an activity in Wild Hose Lake. Okay, so more comments are great fishing, beautiful cutthroats. Please catch them as catch and release only. Maybe a little smile. And then somebody else put spectacular scenery. Oh, and then this one guy put, "Wild Horse Lake is the holiest of holes in my religion. This is my church." Okay. And another good one is, "If I don't come back, I went with a smile." Amazing wildflowers. Outstanding.
Wow, that's nice. Did you sign us out?
Yeah.
Okay. Coyote Lake out there, and the Albert Desert over here. The Albert Ranch is right down here. Some neat little water holes off the side here. Our little Ford Jeep on its maiden voyage at the top of the Steens Mountains.
A hawk rides a thermal on the summit of the Steens Mountains and almost appears to be standing still right in the air above us here on the very summit of the mountain. To be up here is absolutely fantastic, and to be up here and be able to fly. I don't know what that feels like, but it looks like this hawk is enjoying it way too much as he hovers in a thermo coming up from the desert below. We check out some more glaciers where the wind has whooped and howled and piled the snow over the edge of these U-shaped canyons. These canyons here are a classic example of a U-shaped canyon formed by glaciers. They're not V-shaped like most mountain canyons. They're totally different. Across the canyon was what they call a gunsight pass on the cliffs completely across the canyon.
Okay.
Was there anyone else down there fishing?
Okay, which ones
Not
did
when we were doing it. Well,
which
there
ones
was a-
did you boys catch?
I caught this one.
And I caught these 5.
Which 5 did Jacob catch?
These ones right here.
Okay, and which ones did you catch, Joe? Huh?
These ones.
And then Annette.
And you caught these ones.
And how about your grandpa?
And this one's Grandpa's, I think. These middle 5.
Oh, Grandpa got these in the middle? And those Annette caught.
Jacob, you're so damn hard for a fight. You got to fight with Grandma. You dirty. You dirty. Joseph, give me my water. Now you're getting the dog upset. Joe, you're getting the dog upset. Here, Joe. Joe, you get it. Ah, my hand! You're staring up to your pants. Oh, here.
Joe, don't. Joseph.
As sure as the sun sets in the west of an evening, you can bet there's going to be a good kid fight. And if anyone else is there, they're welcome to join in too and have a good little fight up here on top the Steens at Fish Lake as an old doe deer looks on. The full moon is shining brightly between the trees with a little cloud or two passing by. The kid fight is almost over now. When it gets dark, it seems like they forget about fighting.
This morning we're getting up to go fishing, and there's frost over everything up here. The grass is pretty white with frost. You got off? On the deck.
You got a fish?
It's a fish.
Joe, you're really sunburned. Like that.
Shut up. I know. Come on, you dog. It's a fish.
Worm boy's got a fish.
Come on.
What's wrong with his dog? He doesn't want to come out on the deck.
He never did.
Or out on the
Net it, Grandma, net it.
I'll lift it up. Flip it up.
Okay, hold him up and let's see him, Joe.
Hey, you know what?
It might be frosty, but the fish in Fish Lake are sure biting good this morning.
You lost one though, didn't you?
Yeah.
the surface, yours is underwater, Joe. We're fine.
That one isn't fighting.
Then bring it in, then.
Take the landing net.
Flip it up, you can.
Pull it up onto the deck,
When they're not too big.
not through the rail.
Hold him up higher. There.
Grandma, your line. Put it down.
Put your pole down, Marge, so we can get over it.
Let me get on the other side of you.
Do it.
Okay, don't get excited. I'll get out of your way. Well, heck, I got one on Joe. Get out of the way.
How many is that I got now?
Here.
4?
No? I do. I got a fish on.
I'm reeling in. Oh, Grandma, this is the first time I've ever seen you fish like a normal person.
Your line? It must be. Oh, I'm over it. Let me come this side.
Tighten it up a little bit.
Joseph,
I'm going
you've
like
been
Grandma.
doing this long enough, Joe.
Oh, is
You
it
know
okay?
how to do it.
Look at him. It's a nice one.
Yeah, it's a nice big one.
There. See it?
Yep.
Is that your line? See?
One brook trout, huh?
The second one.
Oh, yeah, he is different, isn't
Is it a different kind of brook trout?
Huh?
Who's gonna net it?
We don't have a net, just throw him in.
Small enough.
That's your last one, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe.
It's kind of small. Oh, I guess I'll pick it up.
There he is.
How many is that?
That's my 5th.
Is that your fifth?
Just put out.
Did you take a picture of the dog?
Yeah.
Okay, look this way.
Place. That's where I catch.
Look this way, Tom.
Okay.
Tom, look this way.
Here comes my fish.
Okay, look this way. Hold your head. That's a pretty colored one.
Now we're gathering up and getting ready to go down to the Alvord Desert and warm up a little
We
bit.
decide to go to Whitehorse Hot Springs. On the way, we see a coyote out in the hayfield trying to catch him a mouse out here. He's right on the trail of it, and when we show up, he doesn't seem to pay a lot of attention to us. Marge is driving across miles of dusty, dirty road till we get over to Whitehorse Hot Springs. We find the hot springs to be in great shape. The smaller pool is the hotter, and the larger pool is the cooler, but it's big enough the boys can swim. We're going to, guess what we're having tonight? Looks really good, and they were even better than they looked.
She's getting smart.